When you think about AI, what comes to mind? Probably massive data centers, complex code, maybe a robot brain, right? We think of it as this purely automated, almost magical technology. But what if I told you that behind that curtain, there's a massive, invisible human engine that's making the whole thing run? I mean, it's really the central question, isn't it? How does something like ChatGPT go from just predicting the next word to being able to write poetry or code an entire app? Well, the answer, it's a lot more complicated and honestly, way more human than you'd probably guess. This quote from Privacy International, man, it just hits the nail on the head. You see, the real secret sauce for making AI smarter and safer, it's not just about throwing more data at the problem, it's people. Millions of them doing millions of tiny tasks that all together teach the machine how to think. All right, so let's pull back that curtain. Let's dive into this hidden world and talk about AI's ghost in the machine. We're going to talk about the absolutely essential, but so often invisible workforce that powers the AI you and I use every single day. So, who exactly are these people? Well, you can think of them as part of a massive modern-day global assembly line, a vast digital network of data labelers built for the 21st century. Yeah, they're called microworkers. We're talking about a huge, on-demand global workforce that AI companies can tap into anytime, anywhere. This whole AI supply chain has gone global, outsourcing these critical, tiny tasks to a constantly shifting network of people doing piecework for some of the biggest tech corporations on the planet. And here's the kicker. The pay for this work, which is absolutely essential, can be, well, shockingly low. We're hearing reports from data labelers in Kenya who are making less than $2 an hour for these grueling tasks that are powering multi-billion-dollar AI models. It's a wild contrast, and it raises some really tough questions. And get this, the work itself is often managed in this bizarre hidden world that's run completely by algorithms. Workers talk about these super strict inactivity timers that don't even let them take a bathroom break. Their pay is often decided by these opaque surge pricing models that they can't predict. And because jobs are handed out without any warning, some people get into the habit of waking up every few hours through the night just to see if there's work. All of this, by the way, while often having no clue which tech giant their labor is actually for. But here's the thing. Even with all these crazy conditions, this human labor it's not just helpful, it's fundamental. So let's break down exactly how this happens. How does all that raw data, all that human input, get refined into what we see as smarter AI? Okay, so the main technique here has a fancy name, reinforcement learning from human feedback. You'll see it as RLHF. Basically, you can think of it like this. Humans are the teachers. They look at what the AI spits out and they give it feedback. Good job on this part, or nope, that's totally wrong. And this constant guidance, it rewards the AI for getting things right and corrects it when it's wrong, slowly pushing it to be more aligned with what we actually want. Okay, but how do you do that at a massive scale, right? You can't just tell an AI, hey, be more creative. The trick is to break down these really big, complex goals into super simple black and white checklists. In the industry, they call these rubrics. So you can really picture this whole thing as a pipeline. Step 1, someone's complex prompt gets broken down into a rubric, just a list of simple yes or no questions. Step 2, a human labeler comes in and just goes down that checklist for the AI's response. Did it do this? Yes. Did it do that? No. And finally, step 3, the AI gets a score, like a reward, based on how well it did. Over time, it learns to get better scores. It's literally turning human judgment into a mathematical signal the AI can understand. So with this massive demand for human feedback, it's no surprise, right? A whole new industry has just exploded onto the scene. It's basically a new data gold rush, and it's built entirely on the back of human feedback. And when I say it's booming, I mean the numbers are just staggering. We're looking at a market that's already over $800 million, and it's projected to explode to over $9 billion in just a decade. Think about that. This isn't some small niche service. This is the bedrock, the fundamental infrastructure for the entire AI economy. So let's look at one of the key players in this whole space, a company called Surge AI. It's a really interesting case study. They started in 2020 and they've been profitable and bootstrapped from the get-go, kind of deliberately avoiding that whole Silicon Valley venture capital hype train. They position themselves as the premium option, the place you go for super high quality data. And their client list? Oh, it's just, Google, Microsoft, Anthropic, Meta. Basically every major AI lab you can think of. Now, if you put Surge AI next to its biggest competitor, Scale AI, you start to see two totally different playbooks. Scale AI is all about massive volume and automation. They handle everything: text, images, audio, you name it. That's what we call multimodal data. Surge, on the other hand, is much more focused. They use these carefully curated expert annotators for the really tricky, high-precision language stuff. But for all the impressive growth, for all the corporate success stories, there's a really stark human reality hiding just beneath the surface. That premium quality that these companies are selling, it comes at a cost, a very, very human cost. Just listen to this. This is from an open letter written by AI workers in Kenya. You have to understand a huge chunk of this data labeling work is actually content moderation. It means sifting through the absolute worst, most vile stuff on the internet to teach the AI what not to do. These people are on the digital front lines, basically acting as a shield for the rest of us, and for the AI models themselves, from incredibly traumatic content. And they often do it with very little support. And this, right here, is the central contradiction of the whole industry. On one hand, you have the promise, right? We're building high-quality, nuanced data to create safe, aligned AGI. It sounds amazing. But then you have the reality for the people actually doing the work: grueling, ghost work, rock-bottom wages, and constant exposure to trauma. And make no mistake, these aren't isolated incidents. These issues are systemic. You've got lawsuits against both Surge and Scale AI for misclassifying workers as contractors, to avoid paying benefits. We hear from so many workers who spend hours and hours on unpaid training and tests just to qualify for a task. And the whole supply chain is so opaque. They use these subsidiaries, making it often unclear who's ultimately responsible, which lets the big tech companies keep their hands clean. So where does this all go from here? With all of these ethical and labor problems, the big question on everyone's mind is, can't we just automate the human out of the loop entirely? And, well, no surprise there. That is exactly what the industry is trying to do. We're seeing this big push to use AI to label data for other AIs. It's all about going faster and being more efficient. But here's the catch. The human in the loop is still absolutely essential. Sure, an AI can do a first pass, that's assisted labeling, but a human still has to check its work. It can be programmed to flag the really tricky stuff, but then it has to hand it off to a person to make the final call. At the end of the day, for anything that requires nuance, context, or understanding human values, you still need a person. And this is maybe the most critical point of all. This whole push for automation, let's be clear, it's about boosting productivity and cutting costs for the companies. It is not, in and of itself, a solution for the very real problems of low pay, job insecurity, or terrible working conditions for the humans who are, inevitably, still going to be part of the system. Which brings us to one last big question that we really have to sit with. This entire multi-billion-dollar AI industry is built on a foundation of uniquely human intelligence, our ability to grasp nuance, to understand context, to make ethical judgments. And yet, the system that's been built often values that very same intelligence at less than a living wage. So, as we're all racing to build these incredibly powerful new artificial minds, we really have to ask ourselves, what kind of human intelligence are we deciding is valuable? And what kind of human dignity are we willing to sacrifice to get there?